Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something huge. How British economic policies didn't just tweak India's economy, they fundamentally remade it, right from the ground up. So let's get right into it.
So that's the big question we're tackling, right? How do you reshape the economic bedrock of a massive subcontinent? It's a story that involves land, trade, and a huge transfer of wealth, and it left behind a legacy that lasted for generations. So where do we even start? Well, we start with the people.
We have to start here, because behind every single policy, behind every number, there were millions of real lives. This image is labeled impoverished peasants, and it's a stark reminder that these economic shifts weren't just abstract ideas. They had a profound and often devastating human cost. And it all began with those who worked the land.
To really get this, we've got to start with the land itself, with agriculture. The first thing the British did was completely overhaul the systems of land ownership and tax collection, systems that had been in place for centuries.
And the goal here? Well, it was incredibly straightforward. Squeeze every last drop of revenue from the land. This wasn't about improving agriculture. It was about creating a massive, steady stream of income for the company and later on for the British government.
Now this is really interesting. You can see they used two major systems. You had the Mahalwari System, where the entire village as a group was on the hook for the tax, and then there was the Ryotwari System, where the government dealt directly with each individual farmer. So two different methods, but both were laser-focused on that one single goal we just talked about.
And this is absolutely crucial. Under both of these systems, the tax they demanded was, 1, incredibly high, and 2, it was fixed. Now what does that mean? It means that even if you had a terrible year, a drought, a flood, a total crop failure, you still owed the exact same amount of money. There was absolutely no flexibility, no mercy.
And you can see the domino effect right here. This inflexible system set off a devastating chain reaction. Farmers had to borrow from moneylenders just to pay their taxes. Suddenly, land itself became just another commodity, something you could buy, sell, or lose. This created massive debt. It created a whole new class of powerful landlords, and it started to tear apart the very fabric of village society.
Okay, so that's the story of the farmers. But the story doesn't stop there. For centuries, India was famous all over the world for its incredible artisans and amazing textiles. But that entire way of life was about to run head-on into a perfect storm.
Just imagine this matchup. On one side, you've got these beautiful, high-quality, handmade Indian goods. And on the other, you've got cheaper, mass-produced goods churning out of British factories. At the same time, the traditional supporters of Indian artisans, the local rulers and nobles, were losing their power, while British goods had the full might of the empire pushing them into every market.
But it wasn't just an issue of price or production. The rules of the game were completely rigged. If you wanted to export Indian textiles to Britain, you got hit with a huge tax, making them expensive. But if you were bringing British goods into India, oh, no tax at all. It was a one-way street, designed to favor British industry.
So, what happens next? Well, it was pretty much inevitable. Indian artisans were squeezed from every possible angle. They lost their patrons at home and their markets abroad. And these incredible handicraft industries, which had been the backbone of the economy for generations, just went into a steep and painful decline, a process historians sometimes call deindustrialization.
All right, this brings us to our final really big idea. When you take the money being extracted from the land and you combine it with the destruction of local industries, you get this huge overarching concept that thinkers at the time started calling the drain of wealth.
So what does that really mean? It's key to understand this wasn't just normal trade. It was a systematic siphoning of wealth out of India and into England, without India getting anything of real economic value back in return. Think of it as a massive one-way pipeline for money.
And this is the man who blew the whistle on the whole thing, Dadabhai Naoroji. In his absolutely groundbreaking book, he was one of the first to really analyze this process, and he used hard data and statistics to show the world how India was being systematically drained of its wealth.
So you might be wondering, how did this drain actually work? Well, this breaks it down pretty clearly. Step 1, you collect those harsh land taxes we talked about. Step 2, you use that Indian money to pay for the entire British administration and army in India. Step 3, huge salaries for British officials get sent back home to England. And on top of all that, you have fortunes being made through things like bribes and forced gifts.
And just to give you a sense of the scale here, let's look at this number. This is just one example.
A law passed in 1767 forced the East India Company to pay £400,000 every single year directly to the British government. That's an astronomical sum for the time, and it was coming straight out of Indian revenues.
Okay, so let's step back and look at the final picture here. When you put all these pieces together, the land policies, the ruin of the artisans, and this constant drain of wealth, you really start to see how an entire economy was completely re-engineered.
So what are the big takeaways from all this? First, British policies were, at the end of the day, designed to serve British economic interests. The land systems weren't for development, they were for extraction. Indian industries weren't just outcompeted, they were systematically dismantled by unfair policies. And all of it fueled this constant one-way flow of wealth to England. And that leaves us with one last, really vital question to think about. I mean, these policies are from the past, sure, but they laid the foundation for the economic structures that came later. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the true, lasting legacy when an entire economy is fundamentally remade, not for its own people, but for the benefit of another country?